Hello and welcome to Tech Week 2020 and our Gender Gap in STEM talk. So this is the first time that we've run a Tech Week event in this way. Previously in June, we've had other events from the Department of Computing, such as Women in Computing, Games Britannia, and Cyber Maze, and other computing masterclasses. But this year we wanted to bring it all together into a much bigger festival. Unfortunately, we weren't able to host it physically on campus, but we have put together an online program of resources and activities like this for you to participate in. So today we're going to have Marjory, an academic from the Department of Computing, chat to us about gender gap in STEM. Before we get started, we'll just go around and introduce everyone. So there's myself, my colleague Jack, and then two academics from the Department of Computing here today. So my name is Claire and I work in the school and college engagement team. I've been in the team for nearly 2 years and my role within that is to work with academics within the departments of science, technology and engineering to put on outreach events like this, also obviously physical ones on campus, but going into schools and delivering events as well. So Jack.
Yeah, so my name is Jack Ridley. I work in the schools and college engagement team alongside Claire. Similarly to Claire, I've been in the team about 2.5 years now, and I work with the Department of Computing and some of the Department of Engineering, as well as art and design, and also the media departments as well, putting on outreach activity for schools and colleges.
Marjory, would you want to go next?
Yes. Hello, everybody. My name is Marjory. I'm a senior lecturer at the Department of Computing, as Claire already said. I have been hired in this role from September, so I'm pretty new. And I work with the Great Games Group, so my area of research and teaching is artificial intelligence. And I have done a lot of work with gender gap in STEM in general. So that's why I'm here today to talk about a bit more about that. Mike?
Thanks, Marjorie. My name is Mike Meredith, and I teach on the computer science and software engineering routes that we've got here at Hallam University.
Okay, great. So as Jack mentioned earlier on, if you do want to chat with us at any point or send over any questions, just press the chat function in the bottom right-hand corner and we'll pick those up and answer those. So Marjorie, happy to get started when you are.
Yes, okay. So I'm really happy to be here today talking about this subject because I think it's very important. And me personally, I'm particularly affected by the gender gap in general in STEM, engineering, computing, IT, and everything. So today, I don't know if you all know, is the International Women in Engineering Day. This day was proposed in 2014 by a group of female industry persons and academics that formed the group, the society called Women in Engineering Society. This society is particularly important because during the First World War, I don't know if you all know, because all the men went to fight in the war, the women were required to actually do the jobs that men normally did at that point. So it wasn't normal for women to be in industries and working as engineers, as technicians. They would normally take up roles as caring, so they would be nurses, or they would stay at home. So at that time, they were required to do the jobs because someone needed to do it. When the war ended, what happened was the men came back, and then they required. It wasn't okay anymore for women to be working those roles. They were already, they acquired all those skills and they enjoyed the work. They created a society to guarantee that women could work wherever they want. So this day, the International Women in Engineering Day, it was created to celebrate and to make sure that this fight, the fight for equality and the right for women to work wherever they want, including engineering and STEM, was guaranteed. So that's why we are talking about gender gap today. So today I want to do this presentation more in a chat format. So I'm going to invite people to answer some of the questions and then to discuss some specific points. The idea here is to try and show people that the gender gap, it's something that is deeper than simply saying that girls don't like maths or girls should wear pink and boys should wear blue. So it's something that needs to be taught and needs to be understand, so we can actually break this basic preconcept and then move forward to have a more equal society. So I'm going to show you some experiments that were made that try to prove that the gender stereotypes, they are built into our minds and into the society rather than something that naturally happens because you are a boy or you are a girl. So the first thing that is important to understand, that this kind of understanding of what a man and a woman should do, it's called unconscious bias. So it's something that is built in throughout our lives, and it happens with very tiny and very small things that we are told and we experience and people, you know, do, and then we watch people doing, and then we think it's the right way to do it. So it's always very important to point out what is happening so we can, okay, this is what is happening and maybe I don't agree, so I can go and move and change that, and so we can have a different society. Okay, so the first gender label that we have is, as the title of this chat tells you, is that girls like pink and boys like blue. So this study that was done in 2018, it got children, very young children, with 5-year-olds and 7-year-olds, and they divided these children in groups, and then they asked the 5-year-olds to pick their favorite colors. And then it was a surprise to see that at that age, those children, they didn't clearly have any preference for any stereotype colors. So they repeated the experiments with the 7-year-olds, and then they realized that at 7, it was very clear that boys tend to go to darker bluish colors and girls tended to go to pink or pinkish colors, saying that it was their preference. And then we can, from this study, realize that the behavior of the preference related to the color, it was something that happened between 5 and 7 years. So when you are 5, you are open to your preference in color. So you have a lot of girls liking blues and greens and yellows, and then boys as well. And then at 7, something happened. So my first questions, and I would like to ask Claire now, do you think that girls naturally like pink and boys naturally like blue? So my question for you is, what was your favorite color when you were a child? Do you remember?
Yeah, so mine was purple, and I'm going to show my age here, but it was I don't know if anybody remembers who's listening, but Groovy Chick. It was sort of this cartoon, and it was quite a vibrant purple. So a lot of the stationery and, you know, your pencil case, my lunch bag, it was all that Groovy Chick, that sort of purple theme. So yeah, I think you gravitate towards that because that was what I was supposed to buy, or, you know, my parents were supposed to buy me at that age, were those pencil cases and that stationery and that bedspread and those curtains in that colour.
This color, it was your preference color because you watch a TV show, and then that TV show told you that purple was cool, and then all the stationery related to that cartoon had purple. So you were influenced to like purple because you enjoyed that kind of cartoon. So maybe if the cartoon had blue background or blue colors, you would have liked blue more. Do you understand? So these kind of influences, they are very subtle and they happen all the time. How about you, Jack?
So in a very stereotypical way, my favorite color when I was little was blue. I think that's because the things that I think it was very linked to television, actually. I think I was a big fan of, I grew up in the early 90s, and I really liked Thunderbirds. That was one of my favorite TV shows, and they wore blue uniforms. I used to like Captain Scarlet as well and Captain Blue. And I think so a lot of the things that I was seeing on television blue was a colour that the boys wore, and I think that was one of the reasons that it resonated with me. So it wasn't that, I think from as early as I can remember, the things I watched on TV and the things I was exposed to were blue, and so I think that undoubtedly influenced.
Yeah,
which
I
colour
don't know
like.
if. Oh, sorry, you can finish. Sorry.
No, not at all. No.
Okay, so today, I don't know if this happens in the UK. I'm originally from Brazil. And in Brazil, there is something that is very in fashion now, which is the baby shower with you have a party that you reveal the gender of the baby. Do you have that here? So what happens is you organize when you are pregnant, and then you organize a party to tell everybody, like the society, what's the gender of your baby. And what normally happens is you have a cake, and then half of the cake is pink, the other half of the cake is blue, and then something happens, and then you have a pink color or a blue color, and then you say, okay, if the cake is pink, it means I'm going to have a girl, and the cake is blue, it means I'm going to have a boy. And this is another way. This is something quite new. I don't think this was around like 10 years ago. And then this is another very strong reinforcement of stereotypes. So in a very young age, so if you are pregnant and you are going to have a girl, it's not uncommon for young parents to organize a bedroom for the baby, and the bedroom being all blue if it's a boy or all blue if it's a girl. So nobody thinks about gender neutral, let's say white, everything white, or everything, I don't know, black, whatever. So these colors preferences, they are, forced upon us in several different ways, being it by TV, your shows, the younger generations. Every generation you have a different show that is in fashion. But then you have a lot of you have to question. Okay, I like this pink, but is it me, or is it something that the environment made me think that I like? And then we can move on to advertisement. You mentioned TV shows, and then a lot of adverts, they also target and then they reinforce the gender stereotype. So if you look at here, if you go to Google and then you put toys for girls, today I did this search actually last week, and then those are the kind of things that come out. And if you do look at toys for boys, you have something that is like this. So if I go back and forth, it's very startling, the difference. And if we think that children, they shouldn't be forced to play with specific toys, they should be, promoted, and they should be encouraged to play with as wide as possible kinds of, toys. This shouldn't be happening. You shouldn't have like a completely pink background when you think about toys for girls, and you shouldn't have only cars or toys related to fighting when you think about toys for boys. And then I would like to ask Claire, what was your favorite toy? Do you remember when you were a child?
So I'm an only child, and I think my dad wanted a boy as well. So I would feel like I was quite lucky in that I got both sides. So mum would buy me the Barbies and the plastic kitchen, and then next to my plastic kitchen there was a plastic woodworking bench, and I got cars as well. So I would say my favourite was always the Barbies, but I definitely did go into both camps in the typical girls' toys and the typical boys' toys. I definitely had both.
That's very interesting. So you actually played with, building blocks and cars and, excellent, very good. How about you, Jack? How was your experience with toys? Is Jack in?
Yes.
Sorry, my mic.
Okay, well,
So when I was younger, my favourite things were action figures. So I was a big fan of Star Wars, and well, still am obviously. But when I was little, I liked Star Wars figures and Power Rangers and those sorts of things. Again, based on they were sort of based on fighting and that sort of thing. But overall, I think my favourite was Lego. I really liked Lego, and from a very, very early age. I remember having it and loved it all the way through my childhood. Yeah, so I'd say Lego was probably the biggest thing in my life as a child.
And then if we get those two examples, so Jack has explained to us that his favorite toys were the stereotype of toys that would be given to boys. And then if we think that dolls and Barbies, like Claire said, are normally given to girls, those two like styles of playing, they mimic what society expects of us when we are adults. So women, they are expected to care. So they should learn how to look after a baby. They should learn how to cook. So they play with what they will be expected to do. On the other side, you have boys that, are expected to solve problems. So Lego is a very good example of a toy that helps people to be creative, and then they can create new things. They can think about solutions based on the building blocks and everything. And then fighting, so boys, they are expected to be strong and brave. So action figures fit into the fighting style. So those things, they are very interesting. I actually, ever since I started thinking about the gender gap, I did an experiment, and I keep doing it. Some of my friends, when they have children, when I go to visit them, and then I take a present to the newborn, I normally take the opposite expect present. So if it's a girl, I normally take a car or something that it would be related to a boy. I would expect it to be given to a boy. And then if it's a boy, I give the newborn a doll. And it's interesting because some of my friends, they had some very unexpected reactions related to, this prejudice that is very strongly related to, gender stereotypes. So it's something that we need to think, what is the impact of having a boy playing with a doll? A boy will be a father eventually, maybe not, but it's very likely that a boy will be a father one day. Shouldn't he be, learning how to care for his children? And then a girl, why wouldn't a girl want to play with toys that are helping her to solve problems? And then, these things that we need to reflect on it. And this takes me to the next thing that is important to discuss. There are some researches that indicate that boys, they normally decide what they want to do when they grow up based on their experiences. So based on the toys that they play, or the films, the TV shows that they watch. And then girls, they normally tend to follow the footsteps of role models. So role models are very, very important for the decision making of girls. And then this is another experiment that was really interesting. So again, we got children age 5 to 7, and then those children age 5 and 7, they were asked to draw specific jobs, people that would, drawings that related to specific jobs. And then it was very clear when they draw like police officers, firemen, doctors, or businessmen, they would always draw men. And then if they would draw nurses or teachers, for instance, they would normally draw female characters. So these gender stereotypes in jobs, they come up even earlier than the actual color, preferences stereotypes. And it's very interesting. When they got to the end of the experiments, they invited some employees from these specific jobs that were very clearly, gender stereotypes. And then they asked these people to talk to these children, and they were really shocked when they saw, there is an army officer that was a girl, and then a nurse that was a boy. And then, it's important for, if you have young children or if you are a child, to realize that there is no job that is related to the gender. So if you want to pursue any career, you are more than capable. There are no limitations based on your gender. So this is also very important. And then I want to ask Jack now, what do you think we could do to, help with this bias in jobs? Do you have any specific experience of some very strong, personalities in your life that do a job that is not expected for that, gender?
I think I was quite lucky growing up that, in my family, there was not too much pressure put on me or anyone in my family to follow specific sort of careers. But I think that's the thing you've just discussed about showing children, especially at an early age, that gender doesn't matter in certain roles. So, for example, showing a male nurse or a female army officer or whatever it may be. I think that's really, really important. And I know a lot of my friends who are similar age to me have probably gone into careers that that are traditionally male roles. So things like engineers. So we'll come on to discussing STEM later, but those sorts of engineers, when in fact I think their personalities are actually very suited to roles that would be traditionally attributed to women. So, for example, roles involved in care or maybe teaching, those sorts of things, that I think maybe is actually where their skills lies. So I think, like you say, exposing boys and girls early in their lives to the breadth of things available to them, and exposing that there's nothing inherently gendered about these roles, that they are open to it. I think that's really, really important. Yeah.
Indeed. Now, Claire, I would like you to give your account, if you can. You said you work with outreach and university job degrees advertisement for STEM specifically. I would like to know if you ever heard in your experience in this role anyone saying, okay, maybe my daughter doesn't like engineering, or she's not suitable for, computing. Your experience in these, specific comments?
Not that are they not suitable or things like that, but I have heard parents of females or female prospective students themselves worry that there isn't going to be other females for them to make friends with on the course. So I think they still worry that some degrees are going to be quite male orientated, and they're maybe not going to find, the female friends that they might do on other courses that are more traditionally female based, like health courses.
And what do you normally tell them? Sorry, if you want, any of you want to compliment.
No, I was just going to say, I think what Claire said, I think that's true. I think sometimes when we do speak to, I think teachers are very good at, in most of the schools we work with, the teachers are very good at showing students that they can go into whatever they want. But actually, I think sometimes we meet parents out at schools, that sometimes parents have quite strong assumptions about the sorts of roles and the sorts of university courses that men and women should be pursuing. So, like Claire mentioned, health courses are often very popular amongst parents of girls, because it's assumed that that's a career that they should be going into, because it's been traditionally associated with women in the past. So I think it's, although teachers I think are excellent at breaking down those barriers and those stereotypes, I think we do still find it quite a lot in certain places.
I think it's really important that we always get across that it's their decision. If they really love maths and engineering, and if that's what they want to do, then they shouldn't be swayed by the fact that maybe all their friends are going off to do a health course or something. It doesn't matter that is what they like. It is their decision. It's what they hopefully want to do for the rest of their lives. It's their passion. So they should really stick to what they want to do. It's not about their gender. It's about their passion.
Indeed. And I can say for personal experience, when I decided I have a degree in computer science and I have a PhD in electronic engineering. So I went across the whole spectrum of STEM. So when I did decide to do computer science, my parents specifically, they didn't have any issue with it, but my extended family. So I heard quite a few, outrageous comments from some uncles saying that I wasn't going to fit in, or I wasn't good enough. And when you start, and I started my degree quite a while ago, we still have had lectures in the first year that really didn't encourage female students in the computer science degree. So I'm happy to say that now things have changed. So we actually have females like me, and then we have other female lecturers in the degrees, at least in computing. And then we have female students as well. So if you are interested in coming to STEM and studying Sheffield Hallam, please come, because we have female students. This is not true. It's not true that you won't have any female friends to socialize. We obviously have less than in health degrees, health-related degrees, but we still have some. So carry on. Those are the disgusting stereotypes, you know. So girls, they should be tender, they are more organized, they are calm, they are beautiful, patient, they are caring, they have, you know, they are more educated, they are sensitive. And then boys, they are expected to be aggressive, strong, adventurous. They should have more energy, they are courage, they have more analytical thinking, they have curiosity. This is completely wrong. So you can have any of those attributes regardless of your gender. Those attributes are not related to the gender, completely not related to the gender. But this is the kind of thing that we must work towards breaking up. So this is not true. I just wanted to make sure it is not true. And then when we come to computing, which is, you know, the area that I work most closely, it is very common to have, let's call it a natural tendency to accept that boys are more suitable to come to computing degrees and girls are not. So the boys, they think they are better, and then families as well, because they use more computers. So they should know better to do the degrees related to computing. They are more motivated and they are more confident when having to do computing related stuff. But this is completely not true, you know. As we said, always say, when you want to do a computing degree, the only thing you need to do a computing degree is to be able to enjoy problem solving. So you don't need to even have a computer at home to be able to do a computing degree. And then there is no thing such as natural talent. We have a few students that have some previous experience with programming or computing, but most of our students, they don't. So don't think you need to do an A-level in computing, or you need to be excellent at computing or programming before you start university, because those skills, those things you will learn as you come to the degree. And then you have the girls. You know, girls, they like to care, they feel isolated when they, you know, tend to talk about software or hardware. They don't like to have negative feedback, they are insecure, and they have no natural talent for computing, which is completely wrong, you know. It's not true at all. And these two findings, these two stereotypes specifically for computing, they can be found in this work that was done by Margaret Hamilton. And they actually, in her work, she basically breaks up all those stereotypes related to computing and then explain that they are not at all true. And then we have something that is also related to computing, which is games. So now, before talking about this specific part of my talk, I want to ask Jack, do you like playing games?
Yes, I do like playing games. Yeah.
So do you play online games, or only games that you play on your own?
So I used to play online games when I was younger, but I now only play games that are on my own. Yes, and not
So
as
when
many
you
as I used to.
not as many as you would like.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you used to play online,
Hmm.
did you have any like partners in the game that were female players?
No, I think my experience of playing online is it was really male dominated. It was really male dominated. There were certain games where I think there was a bit more of a mix, but on the whole, I think it was abroad. It felt like a very male-dominated environment, I'd say.
So which games do you think were more, at that time when you played online games, which ones were more female and which ones like mixed and which one were more males?
So the very male ones were things like sort of first-person shooters. So I'd say games such as Battlefield or Call of Duty. Those games felt very male-dominated, as did sports games. So FIFA and those type of games. The ones that seemed to have a bit more of a mix were generally more PC-based, massively multiplayer role-playing games. So things like World of Warcraft or League of Legends, and those games seem to have again, I would say broadly male dominated, but at the same time they had a bit more of a split in terms of gender, whereas those very aggressive console games seem to be more male orientated.
Would you be surprised if I told you that if we look at these statistics that we have access, that half of the players of online games, regardless of their style, are in average are female players? Did you know that?
I didn't know that actually. That really did
Yeah.
surprise me. I think
Yeah.
I wonder if that's something to do with how vocal men are
Yeah.
when they're playing.
And they are not vocal in the game because they suffer prejudice. So
Yeah,
games,
absolutely.
they are very popular, as you said, for males, and they're very, let's call it aggressive. So shooting style games, or maybe football, even though you said you have more females, but football, let's say it's accepted as a male style. They are related to the aggressiveness, which is one of the attributes that officially is related, in the stereotype in the society is related to boys. So they are expected to enjoy that kind of game. And then girls, they should play games like, organizing the house or, making stuff or creating stuff, not actually, exercising activities which are related to action or aggressiveness or, problem solving. So when we think, and then when you look at those games, you have a very, sexualized aspect of it. So it's not uncommon to have games with characters. You have female characters, but they are, not completely dressed. And then males, they are very aggressive towards those characters. So everything related to games until very recently, they were very much made for boys in the stereotype acceptance of stuff that boys enjoyed. And this is something that is being worked on to change, because girls, as I said, they make up half of the industry of the people who are playing. And if we look at the industry, the people that are actually creating the games is ridiculous. It's 5%. We have 5% game developers which are female, and it's very clear when we see the results of the games. The games, they are very much associated with stereotype styles that are for boys. If we have more female game developers, I'm sure we would have more games that would, address, and they would look less sexist, or, that would have less attributes that are related to boys. Now, I want to go to Claire. Claire, did you used to play games?
Not a lot. I never played online. I did have a PS2, and the sort of games I would play, it would be like you said, it wouldn't be anything, that you would consider more male related, like the shooting games or the driving games. It would be Dance Mat or Mario Kart or things like that. Yeah, I have just acquired an Xbox in lockdown, and I have been trying out a few more games, and I'm just awful at them because I didn't have that experience when I was younger. I've never played FIFA, I've never played Call of Duty or anything like that.
You should try. And this is very interesting. So you had a game, and it's not uncommon from my experience to see, if you had, I know, Claire, you were a single child, but if you had a family of a boy and a girl, you have a video game, but the video game belonged to the boy, not to the girl. So all those very tiny things, they are reinforcing this gender gap and this, pushing more and more girls away from this industry and from these opportunities of changing the situation, the actual situation. So if we move to our almost last part of the presentation, I would like to ask Jack first. Have you ever been told that you couldn't do something because you were a boy? You were.
I don't think I've ever been told that. No, not directly, and that probably speaks to the fact that I am a boy. I'm a man, and that there's no routes closed off. So personally, I don't think I've ever been told that. I think with men more broadly, I think some of the areas that they do feel that they can't potentially go into are things that are related to healthcare. Sometimes I think when we talk about breaking down those gender boundaries, it benefits everyone, because I think it feels like, as I mentioned before, I've got friends who I think would be really well suited to careers that aren't traditionally, that they maybe didn't feel comfortable discussing their interest in because of those gender stereotypes. But personally, no, I don't think I've ever been told that. No.
How about you, Claire? Have you ever been told you couldn't do something because you are a girl?
In terms of sort of education and careers at the minute, thankfully, I would say I haven't specifically been told that, but so my background is I did a PhD. So although biology is within the sciences, I would say it's probably the science that has generally more of a balance in the genders. Personally, my professors, my supervisors, they were all women. So I had people in positions of power within the universities that were female. So I had role models in them. So I realized that my gender wouldn't hold me back if I was in that career. But like I said, that was biology, and I do think that is a little bit ahead in terms of addressing that gender gap over other careers, possibly within sort of computing, engineering. There has been times where I've been in rooms and been the only female, in terms of research areas and things like that. There's I'm sure all females experience the comments and things like that, but I don't think I've ever specifically been told that I could not do something. So I do feel very lucky, because I know that there are friends of mine that have. So yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Sometimes we don't even realize that we are being, told that we shouldn't be doing this or that because we are females. I can give you a few examples. I'm being told almost every single day, not at the moment, because I don't really interact one-to-one with a lot of people because we are in lockdown. But when in our not lockdown reality, it's not uncommon, for instance, for the male colleagues to make not adequate comments, in the sense that, oh, you shouldn't lift any weight, or I should hold the door for you, and something, these kind of things, which are not literally saying you cannot do this, but it's a kind of sexist that is very light, but is still sexism, because they don't do that with the male counterparts. And those kind of things, those very tiny things that some people might call it, what is the word in English? It's when you are being nice to a woman, oh my God, when the main chivalry, yeah, it's considered chivalry. Chivalry is actually a kind of sexism. I like to say that chivalry is the kind of sexism that most women enjoy, because it's kind of pretending that a woman is something very delicate, and the women cannot do certain activities because they will maybe break or something. So it's these kind of very tiny things, they are piling up, and they keep reinforcing the stereotype. So if we think that there is very often things that women are told they cannot do because they are women. So I have a lot of examples. I was told that I shouldn't do computer science. When I started computer science, I was told that I would never be a good programmer because I was a woman, or if I had a good grade, I only had a good grade because I was one of the only females in the classroom, but that was a long time ago. These kind of stereotypes, they don't happen very explicitly nowadays, but that we should keep fighting them so they vanish completely. And then this is very much related with what we call unconscious bias. And the unconscious bias is something that happens not only with sexist or gender gap, but with everything else. So LGBTQ or racism or anything that is related to something that you have an assumption and you think that assumption is correct, but in fact it is not. It's something that the society made you think it was correct. It's called unconscious bias. So it's very important that we realize which unconscious bias we have, and then we try and we work in our minds to, you know, try to change that and then reinforce the good things, not the bad things. And then we come to the diversity. So that, why do we need to have women in engineering? What is it important? I actually touched in a few aspects of it. So for instance, if I don't have women working in IT, how the world will have solutions that are related to women's issues, for instance. So I don't know if you know this, a lot of drugs in the US, when they go to trial, they don't get approval because some of the trials, they only happen with males because the industries, they try to test the medicines or the drugs only in males because they think that would be enough. So when the drugs go to use, they don't get approval because they have side effects on women. Or how can a man think about, you know, female issue like a pregnancy app, for instance, if he doesn't get pregnant? So there are lots of issues that need to be tackled in computing, for instance. There are across all genders, but there are some specific issues that relate only with females, and then it's very hard for men to understand or to think about solutions that relate to those issues. And then this is true for everything. So how can I think about a society that doesn't have representation of Black people or of minorities in general, or if people with disabilities? You know, I have to be able to accept that some specific solution might not work if you are a wheelchair user. So diversity is essential. This work that I cite in this slide actually explicitly shows that if you have diversity in a company, for instance, you gain more money because your solutions are more wide accepted because they take into account everybody, all the society, not just one or two groups. So diversity is very, very important. And then engineering, it's obvious, it drives the world, you know. STEM, it's something that is very important. And why not having more females in STEM? So we need more diversity in all areas, but specifically in STEM. And then the same thing applies to the social sciences and then the health sciences. Why do we only have female nurses, or most of them are females? We need variety in that area as well. School teachers, it's very common to have female school teachers. Why not have more diversity in school teachers, for instance? So all the areas, they need diversity. It's not just STEM, but it's important to understand this. And then what can we do to make sure that we don't keep, you know, reinforcing these stereotypes? So we need to understand that unconscious bias is very strong, and we all have it. So we all, because of the society, we are all sexist, we are all racist at some level. We all have this. So once we accept this, we try to work our minds to break that assumption and then open our eyes and our ears and to the possibilities. So gender labels are ridiculous. They shouldn't exist. So beauty, care, and domesticity is not related to women. Action, aggression, and energy is not only related to men. Those things, they apply to everybody because it's everybody. These are emotions, these are actions. So they apply to everybody. And then once we can break that, we can inside ourselves, we can try to make that a reality around us as well. So if we are female in a role, we have to have the same salary as our colleagues that are doing the same job. We need to understand aspirations. So females, they are expected to have less aspirations than females, but this is not true. We should all be, you know, aspiring very high, and we should all have opportunities to go high. So we need to, you know, the first thing is to understand our limitations and our own unconscious bias. Once we do that, you can follow your dreams. So if you like maths, if you like STEM, you like engineering, IT, maths, come and try. Don't listen to people saying that you cannot do, because we can do everything once we put our minds to it. Okay, so if you are a girl, or even if you are a boy and you got interested in these things that I spoke, and you would like to know about, you know, the STEM in general, but, you know, everything related to engineering, IT, computing, maths, there are several groups or societies or activities that you could take part. So there is the Women in Engineering, the IEEE, the R Ladies, the Pi Ladies, STEMETs, other initiatives. So you have loads and loads of options. In our Tech Week website, we have a list of options that you could check, of activities, of groups that you could sign in, and then you can participate in their activities, and you can, you know, learn more about this topic that is so important. And then just to finish up, all of this that we discuss, I like to call this feminism, but you can call it justice if you are not happy with the terminology. But basically, feminism is the fight for equality for everybody, not just for men or for women. But we want the idea about feminism, which is the discussion of the gender gaps and the impact of the gender gap in any area, is to make sure that everybody has the same opportunities and everybody has the same, you know, experiencing life without any limitations because of their gender. Okay, so I think that was it, and I'm happy to take any questions from anyone.
Yeah, so thank you, Marjorie. That was a really interesting talk. If anyone does have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. Just give someone a minute. I'll ask a question first. So obviously you were talking about that age gap between 5 to 7 and how the children's perspective on colours and careers changes over that time. So do you think that that's a really key age for outreach and to sort of not change their opinions, but initiate more thinking along the lines of careers and that they can do anything that they want? And how do you think that maybe universities could help children to do that?
Oh no, I think definitely that the 7, I think up to 7, we can make there is a big impact in outreach work, you know. So this is definitely an age that the university should be looking at. If you have any projects they would like to tackle gender gap. So I would, if you want to have, you know, activity, so not necessarily bringing those children, because I don't know, especially now, how that would work, but if you want to invite, you know, female lecturers to talk to the children in schools, or if you want to have training for teachers on how to, you know, break up, try to invite people like from the workforce that break the gender stereotypes. So yeah, that's a very good, it's a very important age. And I only showed one research that indicates that is true. But if you look at the current, you know, literature, there are several research that have a similar conclusion. So it's basically, we all are born without any limitations or any stereotypes, and then this starts to come up slowly, and then after the 7-year-old age, it's quite hard to, you know, have those very strong stereotypes broken up. So it takes a lot of work. So if we could focus on that up to 7 age, that would be more effective, I would think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And have you sort of seen a difference in England and in the university here compared to your previous university or your home city?
Yes, Sheffield Hallam, it's a very interesting university, and it's actually very similar. The environment is very similar to the university that I used to work. So what we have here is a university that has a lot of local students, which is very similar to the one that I used to work. And then the stereotype is not. I think the stereotype is the same, but people are more polite here. So they don't tend to express vocally what they think, which is the difference, the main difference that I would say we have in Brazil. In Brazil, people, it's not uncommon for a female student or staff to hear outrageous comments related to, gender stereotype. So, for instance, you mentioned you were in meetings that you were the only female in the meeting, and I also have been to meetings that I was the only female. And if it was in Brazil, you would hear they would pretend you weren't there, and here they accept that you are there, even though they might not like it, but they accept you are there. So yeah, it's interesting. I know I'm here for a very short period still. I can see we have a good number of female students, so that's good. But we can always, improve on that. We can always try to convince the prospective female students to actually have the courage, because this is something that is a lot related with confidence. The female students, they are interested, they are very good. When they come, they work really hard, but they don't have the confidence. So if you say, if a female student hears from one of her colleagues or a lecture that she is not good enough, she will believe it. When you have the boys, they don't believe you, even though they might not be good at all. They just think that you don't know anything and they know better. So it's a lot related with confidence, which is something that could also be worked with teachers. How teachers can have an impact on the confidence of female students. That could be worked as well.
Yeah, I know I've definitely heard that from teachers that we work with, that especially around computing, that their female students seem to lack confidence, but they don't lack ability. So they're getting the same grades, if not better, but it is that confidence to carry it on to possibly degree level. Has anybody got any questions?
More just to follow on from that point, really, that like you said, Claire, we do hear from lots of teachers that women and girls often take computer science and computing degrees up to GCSE, but often don't take it to A level, don't take it any further. And I think for anyone who is watching this, I think it would be any prospective students particularly female students who are interested in careers in computing, computer science, that to carry on with it, to carry on and keep pursuing that, because it is for everyone. So, and not to worry about being part of a male-dominated cohort, because there are increasing numbers of women being part of these communities and taking these degrees, and the industry really needs diversity, it needs balance. And so any prospective students watching this now, to make sure you're pursuing what you enjoy, and don't let those perceptions and the things around you, from wherever they're coming from, to stop you.
Indeed, and I will be there, to help you fight it. So please, come.
So if there's no more questions, I just want to say a big thank you, Marjory. That was a really interesting talk, and it's definitely nice to think about those areas that you put forward. I think sometimes, especially like I said, working in biology, naively I thought that the gender gap maybe had closed, but it maybe had in the area that I was in, but definitely now working in this job, you can see the gaps in other areas. So thank you very much. If anyone listening does want to find out more about our computing courses or any of our other courses, you can visit our website at shu.ac.uk. As Marjory mentioned in her talk as well, we do have those links that she put up towards the end on our web pages. and lots of other masterclasses in coding, and there's some cryptography resources up there. And also, because it is International Women in Engineering Day, we have two of our students from engineering, two of our female students, who have recorded videos about their experiences, so their pathways to getting onto the degree, and also their experience on the degree, such as Formula Student and their placements. So you can find those on Twitter or there on our website as well. So thank you very much for joining us, and we hope to see you soon.